Travis Smith, Roy Hyde. Starting in the 7th row will be Chris Memford and Brian Littleton. The 8th row will be Craig Lerman and Jimmy Hetrick. 9th row is going to be Brian Miskell Jr. and Dustin Ping. And in the 10th row will be Damon Patton and Gordon Larson Jr. Starting in the 11th row will be Joshua Caudell and Derek Robinson. Starting in row 12 will be Ryan Wilson and Bobby Hetrick. Row 13 is going to be Justin Walters and Damon Cott. They're going to be followed in row 14 by Travis MacArthur and Scott Lacoe. And in the 15th row will be Matt McKeegan and Chris Spencer. 16th row is going to be Dylan Blankenship and Eric Blount. And starting 33rd and 34th is going to be David Roach and Doug Wysowski. And 36th, 37th is going to be Mike Allward and Ray Radford. And rounding out the field tonight is going to be Mike Massengill.
And they come out of 4, and the Indian Neck Motors 150 is green with Hunter Tate and Brian Snare leading the pack into 1 and 2 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. We've got side-by-side racing throughout the field as we get this underway.
Yeah, they are side-by-side from the front row all the way back to the back row here. Great start to the race. We got one in the outside wall coming off of 2. He gathers it up, keeps going, though.
As they
Travis Arthur.
And they make their way around to complete lap number 1. And it's going to be the 45 of Brian Snare leading the pack as we get started 1 lap down in this Indian Neck Motors 150. It's 100 laps around Atlanta Motor Speedway, 1.5 mile quad oval with the dual dog legs on the front stretch, and they start to fall in line, single file, really using that middle to high line as they get settled in here, John.
Yeah, just as I suspected from practice, those 2 lines really seem to be the place to be. And the good news for the drivers by using that too, you're not quite abusing the tires as much as what you would be if you were hunting that white line on the bottom. Now they go all the way to the top in 1 and 2.
And you can see them trying to make some ground up. In the back, we've got some side-by-side racing. It looks like the 66 of Chris Berg. Nope, sorry, the 55 of Steve Baker tries to make a move on the inside of Hunter Tate there as we get going. So some passing throughout the field, guys trying to pick them off one by one, it looks like, as Brian Snare, Dale Osmond, and Mitchell Snail fall in line for the top 3.
Yeah, now's a good time to do that. You got a nice fresh set of rubber under you with those fresh tires, and your car's going to handle great. So now's the time to do it.
They make their way into 3 and 4. Great crowd here again tonight for the Light Electric Company NextGen Series. As we headed back east after our West Coast trip to kick off the season, and now we're back in the Southeast where NASCAR fans and NextGen Series fans definitely come out and show up each and every weekend.
Absolutely. And you know, we see single file right now, but you know what? I'm gonna jump ahead here. When these tires start to wear, all of a sudden guys are gonna have to lift at different points because some guys will have taken care of the tires better than others. And then I think you're gonna see a lot of passing when once we get about 10, 15 laps in, and guys are starting to have to adjust what they are doing in the car.
We've got some players that have been up front battling throughout the year. Right now we're watching that 66 of Chris Berg. Brian Snare's been fast all year long. Of course, Hunter Tate in that 8 machine's been fast. We've got 4 different winners to kick off the season. Brian Miskell won at Daytona. Roy Hyde picked up the victory at Auto Club. Travis Smith at Las Vegas. And then Dustin Ping last week, crazy finish you had, John, at Phoenix, picked up his first ever LEC NextGen Series victory.
Yeah, that was really entertaining racing out there in the desert. A lot of fun, and Dustin drove a great race and was able to put it all together when he had to right at the end there and picked up the win. It was a good time.
You know, interesting. He put that number 1 Chevy Camaro in victory lane last weekend with us, and then Ross Chastain picks up the victory today at Coda in the number 1 car. So lucky to be number 1 the last couple weeks.
Absolutely.
So falling in line, you can see the top 3, the front 3 have really kind of shifted up even another lane going through 1 and 2. Really single file throughout the lane as we've now completed 8 laps. That's one thing, John, we've seen. If we're able to get going, once we get to about lap 10, they're really able to pick up some green flag runs. We've had a lot of green flag pit stops this year, and then it seems the second half of the race is when the caution comes out, whether it's right during a green flag pit stop or just at the right spot that really shakes up where guys are at during their pit cycle.
Absolutely. That has been the trend this year so far, and it's good to see these guys get through the first few laps here, and now they're able to settle in, turn some laps, and see what they have, and try to make their way to the front. And and the thing is about the front 3, kind of breaking away a little bit. The draft does come into play here. These guys, the speeds are high enough where if you get onto somebody going down the front of the backstretch, you can use the draft to get a run on somebody. And depending on where you want to go with it, you can set them up for a pass and pull a slide job here. It's not unprecedented to see slide jobs happen, especially over in 3 and 4.
And we'll ride along with Mitchell Snare in the number 43 with our Blackhawk Motorsports Shake and Bake in-car camera. Got the gyro cam this weekend. You can really see that banking that this track has, and then as he goes down that front stretch, it flattens right out at that start-finish line.
Yeah, and that's where I was saying one of the other places I worry about once they get some laps in and the wear, that back end, that transition will get the car loose if you're in the throttle too early or take a bad angle off the corner. So these guys, it's just another one of those things, transition, that these guys are going to have to manage throughout the run.
It's amazing how flat it gets right there at the start-finish line, and then as you go into 1, I was actually in person at the new Atlanta Motor Speedway last weekend, and one thing I noticed looking down that front stretch, when you go into 1, how narrow the track gets. Not only now, but it's the same with this version of the track. Of you go into 1, you have that wide space, you have that double dog leg to make a move, but then once you go into 1, you've really got to sort it out and figure it out before you get into that turn.
Yeah, that's why on this configuration, when I said the slide jobs, it's tougher to make that slide job down in 1 and 2 than it is 3 and 4 because even though it flattens out, even on the back straightaway, when you come off the banking, it flattens out on the backstretch, but that backstretch is in fact straight. When you come off of turn 3, or excuse me, turn 4, you can wash out just a little bit because of the dog leg, which allows you to kind of be able to keep your momentum up as you cross the track and do the slide job.
As we look throughout the field, Daytona's winner Brian Mescal Jr. He's up 4 spots, now up to 13th after starting 17th. One driver that's having some struggles right now, John, is that number 9 machine of Travis Smith. He's fallen back 5 spots. He's a winner earlier in the season. He picked up the victory at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And then we go back a little bit further in the field, 23rd right now, Dylan Blankenship. We've seen him have a fast car throughout the year. He's got that Monster Energy machine. He's up 8 spots now, up to 23rd. So we've seen it go through, even with green flag runs, green flag pit stops. We've really been able to see a lot of guys cycle throughout the field. You're able to move up and have a lot of it's been strategy this year, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out tonight at Atlanta.
Yeah, and there's a couple of different ways of passing too. Just outright out driving somebody, because you're more comfortable with the car in the corners, and the other one is drafting and making the pass. Dylan Blankenship, I've had my eye on, and he started 31st and has clicked off a few spots, and he's been almost exclusively using that draft. But the one thing Dylan's been doing that I haven't seen too many other guys doing, he's down on that white line to make a lot of these passes. So the question's going to be, using your stuff up. At some point, does it stall out because he's, been on the bottom and abused that right front a little too much? It'll be interesting to see if that happens, or if pit stops come into play before it wears out to the point where it's not effective anymore.
Well, and he's now up 10 spots. He's actually picked up 2 more since we've been talking about him. Chris Spencer behind him's up 8 spots. It reminds me, I know they used to talk about Kevin Harvick on this configuration. He would get that left side right on that line on the inside, and he was definitely successful with making that work. But like you said, you have to manage the rest of tires and what your car's doing besides that. So it'll be interesting to see if we have long green flag runs. That wear on those tires is definitely going to come into play.
Yeah, and Dylan, in all fairness too, he has to pass guys where they're not. Most of these guys have been up in those top two grooves. Well, he can't very well just drive through them, so he's had no choice but to go down there. But he is making it work, and it'll be interesting to see how that line stacks up once he gets up toward the front with some of the faster guys at this point in time at this track to see if that's still effective with those guys up there, if he gets up there.
Well, yeah, he's picking up ground and obviously has a fast car, fast line he's using. He's choosing the strategy of going on the attack mode this first green flag run instead of sitting back and letting some other things fall into place. And he's taking full control over what he can do. And so far, it's definitely working for him. Between him, Justin Walters in the 54, and then Chris Spencer in that 11, they are definitely moving up through the field. So we'll keep an eye on them as we go through this evening.
Yeah, and we've been talking about the guys moving up, but you mentioned someone like Travis Smith who was moving back. And the other thing is maybe you probably have a couple guys that are trying to be easy on the tires and giving some spots up early just to take care of their equipment. So later in the run, they'd be on the move. So I'd be interested to see. We got a three-way battle for second going across our finish line. Wow.
As they're shaking it up, it's Brian Snare continues to lead. He's 20 laps in, 20 laps down. Dale Osborne in that 88 machine, Steve Baker in the 55, and then Mitchell Snare in that 43. Some good battle, and even once they fall in line, they're still able to pull out and make some moves. Like we mentioned in the pre-race, this track, while known as wearing on the tires, a great older surfaces in this version, the NASCAR Xfinity Series, which that's the version of the cars we're driving in the Next Gen Series here, uh, were good races on this surface. It wasn't changed because their racing was boring. They were able to make moves, make passes, and make some gains around the track, and that's exactly what we're seeing tonight.
Yeah, and the scary thing is I know iRacing is working on doing their version of that PJ1 compound that you see at a lot of tracks. That will be interesting if they perfect that and bring that out to us too. I couldn't imagine. They'll probably have this reconfigured by then, but some of the other tracks, it'd be interesting to see what happens when they do that.
Well, that's the cool thing too, is when they redid the new Atlanta Motor Speedway, iRacing was heavily involved. They were helping build it, helping simulate it, and really helping show what the next gen car would do on it. I don't think they spent as much time with the Xfinity Series version of the car, but I know it'll definitely be interesting to see how differently it drives. And hopefully, we're back here broadcasting with the LEC Next Gen Series on that new track as well.
Absolutely. NASCAR also worked with iRacing to get that whole Coliseum deal, and map all that out. So it is pretty cool with the partnership iRacing does have with the NASCAR. And I tell you, who benefits is these guys that get to run these tracks and these cars, and us who get to sit and watch this great racing.
Definitely. It's been another exciting night. We are 23 laps in now as Brian Snare continues to lead, but Dale Osborne and Steve Baker are hot on his tracks. And this is something we've seen all season long too, is once guys fall in behind that leader, is it that they can't get past him? Is it they're trying to follow his line and see what he's doing? Are they just kind of conserving? But they are definitely right on his tail here now as we go into 3 and 4.
Yeah, and there's a heck of a battle for fourth, fifth right now. There's a little bit of a slide job by Chris Berg on Mitchell Snare. Mitchell Snare's given up 2 spots now in the last lap, so maybe he's the first one whose tires have fallen off a little bit.
Another car that's been fast is that 94 Troy Radford. He has held par, started fourth, currently running fourth. We've seen him up and down throughout the year, but a fast car here in the early going as we've got some moves moves throughout the field. No one really getting too aggressive at this point as they settled in. But, we were talking about him earlier. That Dylan Blankenship, number 21, is up 14 spots now. He's inside the top 20 in 17th, John.
Yeah, excellent start to the race for Dylan there, and he continues to pick them off. I now am starting to see these guys having to pedal a lot more, and now you're seeing these guys that were single file now starting to take peeks and try to make passes. Like right now, if you go to about fourth place, um, Chris Berg is looking like he's wanting to go from fifth to fourth here. He has taken a couple looks on the 94 machine of Troy Radford, and here he's going to have a great run coming out of the corner.
Radford tries to cut him off and will. Atlanta Motor Speedway has had a ton of great finishes coming off of turn 4 there. The one I think of, John, is the Harvick win, his first win in that 2001 series over Jeff Gordon, where he just took that momentum and just beat him to the line. Bobby Labonte won a race doing that as well. So this track will definitely have a great finish if it's possible, and if a guy's able to grab a run off of 4, like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, even Carl Edwards, I think, got his first win with a very similar finish. So, yeah, this track is, I hate to use the word notorious, but I guess known for those finishes. I can't think of another track that has more of those that have happened at their track in the last maybe 2 decades than Atlanta. When I do think of really close finishes, this is the joint. Now we got a battle for second. Yeah, this is the joint I think of when I think of close finishes.
And Baker finally got enough momentum going. He's on the inside of Osborne, and they'll come off a 4 drag race to the start finish line. And the 55 isn't able to clear him quite yet, but they'll go into one side by side.
Yeah, and this is really making the 55 use his tires up here. But he's probably banked, and took care of him early on. And there he is. He makes it cleanly, slides up in front, and as he moves into second place here.
John, when are we looking for first pit stops? We've seen some guys come in early. We've seen some guys wait. Normally, it's about a 10-lap window we've seen when it's a green flag run. When are you expecting the first few guys to try to come in and get in as quick as possible?
I wish iRacing would show me the laps I've made ghosting, so I could see that, because I tried to do a pit run. So I don't know the answer to that, unfortunately, but I'll tell you this. After about 15 laps, I'd love to come pit and get some new tires. So I think, the best that I can answer, I don't know the lap number, but, I don't know if the handling will go away. I was considerably slower when I did a full fuel run. So we saw this at, I think it was California, where some guys pitted early, and they were, 2 seconds a lap faster?
Yep.
So I think you'll see that in play here. So it'll be interesting to see who blinks, goes first, takes the gamble, tries to do the undercut, and who just tries to stay out there as long as they can to see if they can catch anybody out with a caution flying, because you will lose a lap here by pitting. So if, everybody else pits and you stay out, and a caution comes out, next thing you know, you've got half the field or more a lap down, and that's a big advantage.
We saw coming out of 2, Mitchell Snare had some problems there. He's got damage on the front of his machine. I'm sure if we go through the field, there's probably someone with damage on the rear of theirs. But he's now fallen back to 14th. We saw him come off a 2, make contact, and then go all the way to the inside wall on the backstretch there. So he's definitely looking forward to that first round of pit stops to fix some damage, and probably need tires more than anybody now on that 43 machine.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I mean, as they go down into turn 1 and 2 here, if you watch, now they're sliding all the way up to that wall, which tells me the tires are not gripping as good, and they're needing all the track to, I mean, they are on that wall, and they need all the track to make this work at this point.
We've got a 5-car breakaway here with the leaders as Brian Snare continues to lead. He's led 33 of 33 laps, but the 55 machine of Baker is right on his tail as they go through 3 and 4.
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to set him up to get a run on him to take over the lead here. Baker was really fast in practice. When I was out there ghosting, he zipped around me like I had a parachute out of the back of the car, and then I tried to follow him for a while and couldn't. So I don't know. if they were who was on fresher tires or what, but I know up close that 55 was really fast.
And he continues to chase down that 45 machine as Mitchell Snell's now settled in in 15th after that damage he had, but he's got that 21 machine of Dylan Blankenship now trying to be in. He gets loose, and it's actually Dylan Blankenship going to pit and be our first one on pit road. And we have a pass for the lead.
And Blankenship turned around in his pit stop. Oh, this is costly for Blankenship.
It looked like Baker and Brian Snare might have gotten together in 1 and 2. Baker was able to lead. He comes to pit road. Chris Berg will take over the lead as Osmond and Brian Snare will head to pit road with him with Troy Radford.
Yeah, we see pit stops starting to happen, so I guess we didn't have to wait long to get an answer to your question.
No, and you were talking in pre-race, John. That transition from turn 4 onto pit road already causing some issues for guys. Do you want to talk about what you experienced earlier today with that?
Yeah, the back, just keeping the back under you, because the problem is when you've got your wheel turn coming off that banking, when you've got your wheel turn, and then you start braking, the car wants to break loose. So you've got to just be really, really careful getting on pit road, or you're going to get yourself in trouble. I mean, there's just no two ways around it. We talked about the transition on the front stretch. Well, if we can find a car that's going to be going in the pits, you get that gyro cam in there, you will see that the transition from that banking to that flat pit road and having to have that happen in a shorter time span is huge. It's much different.
As we've got leaders side by side, Chris Medford currently leads Brian Littleton to his inside, Travis Smith right behind them as they come to the start finish line. Littleton will lead that lap as we continue to cycle through green flag pit stops, and this has been a reoccurring theme all season long, John. The green flag run here, the first half of the race, opens up the pits, and we've seen a lot of guys make moves, a lot of strategy at play, and even tonight, a little bit of chaos that goes along with it.
Yeah, and once again, no short of chaos. Like I said, the 21 of Blankenship pitted early, and it looked like he was about to overshoot his pit stall and jam the brakes, looped it around, so he's not going to get that benefit. But his lap times are 31, in the 31s, where the leaders are 34. So big difference in speed these first few laps. Medford edges the wall.
He's been having some problems coming out of 2, and let's ride along with him, as I'm sure he's probably making his way to pit road soon. Maybe not this time. Trying to.
Wow, he didn't.
And he's going to try to stay out as long as he can now. At this point, is here you'll see the 88 machine who has pitted shouldn't have any problem getting by these leaders.
No, and the 55 there just passed him to unlap himself. So now the amount of time they're losing is just critical. To be blunt, they need to pit and pit now.
Yeah, last lap, the 88 machine of Dale Osmond had a 32.21. The leader, or Travis Smith running second right now, had a 34.05. So definitely losing ground. And we should see the rest of them cycle through as now their benefit of staying out starts to dwindle away.
Yeah, significant, because now if they stay out much longer, they themselves could be in danger of being a half a lap, 3/4 of a lap down when they get back on the track. And if they wait too long, they may actually lose a lap themselves just pitting, and that's counterproductive.
And there's the 45 machine of Brian Snare. He flies by as now the 80 Littleton makes a pit, and that will pass the lead on to Travis Smith and Chris Medford, who continue to make laps around the track. It looks like we've got Steve Baker. He's currently in 12th. He should cycle around if this stays green, John.
Yeah, and he's probably going to have a huge lead now too when we do so. But we're not through the pit stops, and we've seen cautions happen either right after these things or during. So not to jinx the field, it'd be great to see 100 laps caution free, but I can tell you there's some guys right now that are praying for a caution, and I think the leader is in.
That will pass the lead off to Chris Medford. We've got Medford, Bishop, Hilton, Hedrick, and about 6 other guys that are still waiting to go out, including last week's winner, Dustin Ping, who currently runs 5th. But you can see there's the 69 Allurman get by Medford easy. As Medford continues to have issues coming out of 2 there, that is a treacherous corner we're seeing tonight. And now cars are spread out throughout this 1.5 mile oval now, John. So plenty of action around the entire track, as Medford will at least stay out one more lap. And it looks like our 2B leader at some point, if this does stay green, is up to 8th and still running much faster times. Actually, 2 seconds faster for Steve Baker that last lap.
Yeah, and Chris Berg just zipped by him there like he's standing still. So, and like I said, now at this point he's losing time to those guys. So I mean, he's kind of had the strategy, I think, to maybe see if he could catch a caution. My thing is, I would love to know what the tire wear is on those cars when they come off.
So if you play the strategy game and you stayed out as long as possible now, John, and you don't catch the caution, what does your strategy for the remainder of the race have to be after losing all that ground on the leader?
Yeah, well, now the caution isn't the break that he would have gotten if it would have come out 4 or 5 laps ago, before guys started unlapping themselves in wholesale fashion. Now the caution's going to be there to help him to stop the bleeding, and will keep him on the lead lap. And he's going to have to just reset at that point, and try to work his way back up. I don't, if he's got a fast enough car, he'll do it. And here is the 80 on lapping himself, who was just in front of him. Um, uh, so like I said, it's a heck of a strategy, a heck of a gamble, but I don't know how this is going to work out for him without a caution at this point.
And there we see the 9 machine of Travis Smith. He actually stayed out quite a bit later as well and was running with the 46. He's able to get by as well, as we watch Chris Medford continue to lead our Indian Neck Motors 150. We're at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the 5th race of the LEC NextGen Series. After being out west for a while, John's got his suntan, but now we're in the southeast. And we'll continue to race on the east side, as next week we will be at Richmond Raceway, some short track racing, and then we head to Charlotte for the Roval. So a lot of diversity in our tracks the next few weeks, and it'll be exciting to see what the racing is like on the track each week.
Yeah, and you mentioned the suntan. Unfortunately, that's a pipe dream for me. I've got Irish skin, so I've got 2 skin tones: lobster and white. I get a sunburn and it'll peel, and I'm back to white. No tanning happening. Maybe a few more freckles, but that's about it.
The sunscreen was thick as we were out west. Made our stops in California, Las Vegas, and then ended up in Phoenix last week.
I need that 10,000 SPF to manage, but I tell you, good times out there, good food out there, the whole 9 yards. But hey, we got the leader pulling into the pits now.
So Medford will pit. That'll hand it over to David Roach. Then you've got the number 1 of Dustin Ping, Justin Walters, and then Steve Baker now up to 5th, who will regain this lead as Dustin Ping also pits. So now we're down to 2 drivers left to pit. Let's see. And Steve Baker's, this is one thing that's interesting, John. I was looking at Steve. He was able to put quite a bit of distance between him and Troy Radford as well, who will be your second place car. So definitely interesting to see. And then one guy we talked about, Dylan Blankenship, who was making up a ton of ground, kind of held par after his issues on pit road.
Yeah, David Roach is pitting now out of second place. So that leaves us with, what, 1 guy?
That is it. Steve Baker's taken over the lead. So we are cycled through. So it's going to be Steve Baker, Troy Radford, Brian Snare, Chris Spencer, and Roy Hyde, your top 5. Chris Spencer, John, we talked about him. He was moving up with Blankenship. One of the early guys to pit, didn't have issues on pit road, and he definitely took advantage of that as he started 30th and is now up to 4th after our first round of green flag pit stops.
Yeah, and I look where Dylan Blankenship cycled throughout. He's in 13th. And remember, he got turned around when he went to the pits. So just think of how much that probably would have been an advantage if he had not spun the car and probably took an extra 7, 8, 9 seconds in the pits.
He definitely has a fast car, so it'll be fun to watch him. He's up to 12th now. Got his sights on the 48 of Jimmy Hedrick now, and hoping to be knocking on a top 10 place here shortly as he continues to make his rounds. Steve Baker regains the lead. Brian Snare, who led the first 30-some laps, is now in third. And then Troy Radford, another just a solid day for the 94 machine. He continues to just ride out in the top five. Be interesting to see. We had our first pit stops around lap 35, John. So if that's the case, we should be seeing some guys possibly around lap 70. And then those guys will be good to go. But we've got at least one more round of pit stops left for everyone on the track.
Yeah, and for the first time today, our leader has traffic up in front of him. They have now caught the back end after the pit stop cycled through. So for the first time, we're going to see leaders having to work their way around cars. There's a nice stream of cars. Oh, I don't know, probably about what, a quarter of a straightaway in front of him there. And I expect the next 3 or 4 laps, the passing will start.
And we've seen this all year long. It'll be interesting. We're now in the second half of this race, 53 laps of 100 complete. It'll be interesting to see. We've seen some late race cautions come and totally change the outlook of the race. We've seen some guys possibly not win because of some late race cautions that they had. We saw Roy Hyde hold off restart after restarted Auto Club and was able to claim victory. So it'll be interesting to see if our trends continue today at Atlanta.
Yeah, and this track is, I don't want to use the word unpredictable, but there's options. So if we get some light race restarts, things could get real interesting. And in the speed difference between new tires and, let's say, worn tires, at what point do you ride or die with your tires? 10 to go, 15 to go? At what point are you still willing to gamble? We're back. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things that can come into play that can determine the outcome. But if we stay on pace like what we are, clean and green, you know what? Mr. Baker seems to have this thing well in hand at this point.
Yes, he does, and he caught one car. It looks like he's still got a little bit before that stream of lapped cars. As he continues to lead, he continues to have fast laps around this mile and a half. As we're going to take a ride with him with our Blackhawk Motorsports in-car shake and bake cam and take another lap around this Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yeah, and as we're doing that, Troy Radford, who is behind him, right now he has to be in that car thinking, okay, we got one more pit stop we're going to have to make. Do we try the undercut? Do we try to come in early and see if we can make up this gap now that's between the two of them by pitting maybe a lap or two before Baker does? And is Baker paying attention to thwart that? He sees Radford in. Does he pit the next lap? So their strategy being thought about and contemplated right now is, oh, by the way, they're trying to dodge lap cars and drive around here at 180 mile an hour.
So as he comes up on some lap cars here, John, we see what he's seeing. What is he thinking on what's the best way of getting around at least these first three cars he's coming up to?
Well, the first thing is you're thinking, okay, get out of the way. And the other thing is be consistent. You know what? If you're going to continue, if you're racing for position, don't be in my line. These guys all seem to be moving down and giving him a free rein to be able to run his line. So right now, that's, you're a sigh of relief. The best thing in the world that he's seen is these cars are single file with some space between them. What he doesn't want to see is a cluster of cars fighting with each other for a position, because then, no one wants to yield, because then they give up the fight for position. But right now, this isn't too bad here. You got one car at a time, pick them up, lay them down. But as I look out the windshield of his car here, he's coming out of two, but I look up into turn three, and there is a gaggle of cars that are fighting together. So if we keep green, he's going to catch them eventually.
As we look through the field, Roy Hyde in the 00 there, Chris Spencer in the 11, Brian Mescal Jr. in that 33. They are in lap traffic as well. Those three continue to battle for 6th, 7th, and 8th around this track. John, we talked about going to Richmond Raceway next week, and we could debate whether you consider that a short track or not 3/4 mile. But we're seeing a lot of damage on some of these cars where they look like they're racing on short tracks, even though we're here at this high-speed 1.5 miles in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's a product, I think, of being up against that wall and, like I said, kind of having that push condition coming out of two. Once that nose takes off, especially over in two, it's really hard without almost rolling all the way out of the throttle to not hit that wall. So, yeah, there's a lot of right side damage here, but you know, we like I said, we stayed green and still some good racing to be had on track.
And speaking of, let's go through the field. We've got Steve Baker running in first. He started 7th. He's been up front and fast all day long. He's currently followed by that 94 machine of Troy Radford. Brian Snare follows them in 3rd. Brian Littleton took advantage of those green flag pit stops. He's up to 4th. He started 14th today, followed by Travis Smith. He was our winner at Las Vegas. He's got 6 career LEC NextGen Series victories. 6th is Chris Spencer. He's up 24 spots currently after starting 30th. He's been fast. He's our best performing Ford tonight thus far. And he's followed by Roy Hyde in that 00 machine. Roy picked up his 2nd career victory at Auto Club earlier this year. Behind him is that number 33 machine of Brian Mescal. He's got 8 career victories, including our Daytona kickoff for the 2022 season. Nathan Bishop runs 9th. He's been fast all season long, John. We've seen him run up front. I think he's been someone that's had some bad luck with when cautions have come out, when green flag runs have lasted. And then we'll round out our top 10 with the 48 machine, the Ally machine of Jimmy Hedrick. And then just outside the top 10 is that Dylan Blankenship car we've talked about. He has almost completed his journey to the top 10, John. He's up 19 spots currently.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is too, we're working lap 64. That means pit stops could be happening in the next 10 laps or so again. So this race is unfolding fast. And right now, second place has gotten caught up behind traffic, and now the 55 of Baker is out to a big lead. So that undercut, he's got to be probably thinking very serious about doing that now to make up that lead now that that Baker has over him.
As we see the intervals between drivers, 65 laps complete. I'd say we're about 5 laps, possibly, maybe sooner, of seeing some, but you can see how they're spread out. Baker currently has over a 2.5 second lead, and then it's about another 3.5, 4 seconds back to Littleton.
Leader's pitting.
As Baker's the first one to come in this time through, as he has to slam on the brakes hard getting to pit road.
Yeah, and judging by how many laps the other guys ran, he could probably make it from here. You know, because we saw some guys start about lap 35, but I think we saw guys pit as late as lap 45.
As Troy Radford will lead his first laps of the night as he makes his rounds.
He's going to come in. He's rolling out of it.
And with Baker leading, I expect a lot of these leaders to come in sooner than later and not lose even more ground to Steve Baker. I think we'll still see some guys try to extend it as long as possible, but I think the leaders will try to get in there if they can.
Absolutely. You don't want to, if you don't answer with him at this point, by the time this cycle's out, he's coming on in the backstretch right with our leader, so he didn't quite lose a full lap here. Um, yeah, if you don't follow suit here, you're going to be way behind the leader at this point.
And you saw Littleton catch up to him, and then once they got to 3 and 4, Baker just took off, and now he's on his way back, trying to get back to the lead on his own, only falling back to 15th currently. As it looks like our 5th place Brian Mescal's in, 6th place Roy Hyde. The leaders are definitely starting to hit pit road.
Yeah, and these guys that Travis Smith and Littleton passed Troy Radford, who pitted from second earlier. He was just exiting pit road, whereas Baker now has a huge lead over Radford. And here comes Littleton.
Littleton
Oh, big lead.
Littleton hits pit road. Travis Smith will take it over. Steve Baker continues to cycle his way through. Travis Smith leading tonight. He was our Las Vegas Motor Speedway winner earlier in the season. And you can definitely see the difference in tires now as we look ahead. It looks like Baker, and yep, Baker last lap was a 32.5. The leader was almost 34 seconds that last lap, John.
Yeah, and that'll put Nathan Bishop in the lead here, and he turned a 33.73. So even at that, he's a little quicker. Is still significantly slower.
They continue to cycle through.
Yeah, as I say, now I think you can't. If you're anybody that hasn't pitted, you will probably lose a lap now. Baker's well in front of them now. That you're going to lose a lap when you pit.
We saw Baker just pass Travis Smith, who was still in the pit, so you can see kind of how they're going to cycle through. Troy Radford, who was behind him, now has Chris Spencer between him, Travis Smith between him. So it'll be interesting to see the guys that got onto pit road and off pit road, who took advantage of that and who was able to pick up ground and who maybe lost some time on that as well.
Yeah, and they're clustered up in front of the leader. You got guys now on these fast tires, new tires that are 2 seconds. I tell you, it's surprising that you don't see any. It's a really good testament to the drivers in this league and having awareness and being smart about how they're driving, because when you close up on somebody that you're that much faster, you know how easy it would be to make a misjudgment to where they're going to be or whatever, and next thing you know, somebody's going around. These guys are doing just a fantastic job of being able to manage old tires and new tires on the track at the same time.
We saw that during the first round of green flag pit stops, a little chaotic at times as guys were moving all over the track. The speed difference was very apparent, and guys were able to get through it. Saw a couple guys, I remember Mitchell Snare having some problems coming off of 2, but everyone was able to keep it going forward, and we're now 73 laps green to start this Indian Neck Motors 150 at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yeah, just like I said, just a fantastic job by these drivers on a track that is not easy, to get around, especially to manage through a whole tire run. A lot of things change with these cars. Um, every one of these guys should feel pretty good about the fact they've done this now for 83 laps and no caution.
And it looks like Baker's currently up to 5th. Troy Radford, who was behind him, is under 2 seconds behind him. So Troy was actually able to pick up some ground on Baker there. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out once it completely cycles through. But we are now 74 laps complete. 26 laps to go in this 100-lap event, 150 miles around Atlanta Motor Speedway. Bishop's in. Now Hilton will take the lead with Chris Medford and then Bobby Hedrick. And then 5th or 4th will be Steve Baker.
Yeah, I have to think Baker must have got caught into some traffic or something for that gap to be back down to 2 seconds between he and Radford, because I can tell you that it was much bigger than that when they came out of the pits. So good job on Radford making up that time.
Well, in the last couple laps since then, John, he's picked up even more time. He's got that gap down to about 1 second now, as you can see him right behind 2 lap cars between them. But he's definitely making up ground on that 55 Baker machine.
Guess his crew chief put on a matched set of tires, staggered specifically for this track.
Special tires. He's got special tires on for this last run, John. 25 laps to go.
Old Days of Thunder reference, but yeah, this might get interesting here, because Radford at this point is clearly pulling in on Steve Baker here. But you got 2 guys side by side in front of him. Radford does not want to see that.
No, and we've got the Shake and Bake in-car cam presented by Blackhawk Motorsports. As you can see, they're side by side. He's deciding where to go, and then he can see Steve Baker right up ahead of him as he tries to shoot the gap as they come to the start-finish line. Be interesting to see what he does in 1 and 2.
Yeah, he's probably got the tire in the car to go right between them, but it goes back to that risk here towards the front. Laps are winding down. How much are you wanting to risk?
And it looks like that 41 machine of McMeekin will fall in front of Robinson in that 38 for a minute, as this is definitely holding up the momentum of Radford, but he is still just over a second behind Baker. He's finally able to get to the inside of the Robinson machine, and now we'll try to get past McMeekin before setting sights on Baker.
Yeah, and you see Baker came up on two cars that were side by side, but immediately they got single file, went to the bottom, and got out of his way, so to speak. So Radford didn't get the same treatment from these two guys, and that looks like the 55 now has stretched his lead out just a little bit. While it took Radford there in the 94 to work his way around those guys.
And as we watch this battle, we've still got Tyler Hilton in that number 2 machine. He is still yet to pit. At this point, he's going to ride it out as long as he can, as he's got Steve Baker, Chris Medford has not pitted yet, and then Troy Radford definitely chasing him down, and will catch him eventually here, whether he pits or not.
Yeah, and the 46 gets out of the way of Radford, so that's going to be a little bit easier here, but still 3 more cars that Radford has to clear, and Steve Baker has clear now. Baker now has clear track in front of him, so it'll be interesting to see now, does he widen that lead here?
As it is racy right in front of Radford. He's got 3 cars. Tate to the inside, the 41 machine of McMeekin now in front of him, and then the 47 machine of Ray Radford not far ahead either.
And Radford has to really keep his composure here, because I can tell you, in the car, I bet you he is super frustrated. Cannot, wants these guys to get out of the way. They're not doing anything wrong. They're racing for spots and whatnot. They're entitled to the track. But I can tell you, Radford's probably going, you guys get out of the way, please. And if you get rattled like that, all of a sudden you start pushing maybe a little harder, missing marks. But now that he's gotten clear, look at the lead now. That Steve Baker's put back up on him now. This is going to be really difficult for him to close this gap without a caution, with less than 20 laps to go.
And it's stretched back to almost 2 seconds now. You can see that gap. Well, that's another thing this track, I think, produces as well, with how your tires get and how wore out the surface is, John. When you're around lap traffic, you're not always deciding exactly where you want to be. Some of these lap cars might have to run lines out of just holding it together with tires, old surface, all the other factors that play at it as well.
Absolutely, because if they, try to stay at the bottom and they put all that wheel in there to turn their car, and that might make the back end loose. You're absolutely right. It may not be an option for a couple of these guys to get out of the way and not get run over in the process. So, um, a lot going on. Like I said, they didn't do anything wrong there, holding them up. I'm just saying, from his standpoint, I'm sure that he was just going nuts behind that wheel, and now he's going to have to really get on it to see if he can track down the 55 here.
And now that they're both away from lap traffic, it's holding steady at about 1.9 seconds is the gap between those two. Tyler Hilton's lead is down to about 1.1 seconds, so Steve Baker's going to be catching up quickly to him, and then we'll be completely semi-cycled through, as Tyler Hilton just has not pitted yet, as they come now up to him on the backstretch.
Yeah, my suspicions, once they get to him, he probably will dive into the pits and take that rubber.
Radford is definitely up on the wheel. Saw him coming out of 2. Back end kicked out, trying to catch up to Baker as much as he can. Still holding at about 2 seconds behind Baker. And Baker's been fast all day long as he now gets to the outside of the Hilton machine. We've seen him be fast from the beginning. He's really ran the top 5 majority of this race. And with it being green for the first 84 laps, he has definitely been the leader of the pack.
Yeah, this actually makes coast, and he just blew by me like I had a parachute out, and I tried to do everything I could to mimic what he was doing, and well, he's shown that most everybody can't mimic what he's doing, and he's quick here, so that makes me feel a little better about myself. But he's just driven a flawless race. I mean, this is probably, of all the races we've done, he's probably together the best drive that I've seen so far with everybody. Just it hasn't put a tire wrong for any of these laps.
As he got past Tyler Hilton, Troy Radford now makes his move on Tyler as he'll settle in there. Currently running in fourth is that number 9 Travis Smith machine, another solid night from him. And then currently in fifth is the Brian Littleton number 80. Some guys we've seen up front a majority of the season. I look back, currently running in eighth is that Brian Snare machine, John. He was dominant that first green flag run. And then after it cycled through after that first pit stop, he's settled in nicely in that second half of the top 10. But after seeing how fast his car was to start, it'd be interesting to see what happened to his car as it went on throughout the night.
Yeah, we saw a lot of guys have trouble on pit road, and you never know without going back and looking at what each car did individually. If he had some trouble, maybe got squirrely, overshot his pit, had to back in, had an issue getting on or getting off pit road, or just an issue on the track, and that's just right where he's destined to finish. But that's a solid points day, though. You take those all day, sprinkle days like that in with, those few of those great days where you're on the podium or you win, and next thing you know, at the end of the season, you're fighting for a championship. I mean, that's exactly what it takes to be in the points at the end of the season.
One guy we talked about earlier in the night, Dylan Blankenship, he settled in 11th, had a fast car. I think the green flag runs uh, kind of got guys settled into positions that really that's where they were and that's where they were going to run, just with the gaps and the cars strung out completely around. One thing it would have been interesting to see, and it may still happen, but if we'd have had a caution or two throughout this race, what some of these guys back in the pack could have done, because between Dylan Blankenship, Eric Blunt, and David Reach, we saw some guys pick up some major ground throughout the night with this what is about to be 90 laps of green flag racing.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Blankenship overshot his pits, jammed the brakes on, turned the car around on pit road, had to get the car turned back around, get back in his pit stops. Like I said, easily probably cost him 9-10 seconds on the track, which is a huge, huge difference. Um, you'd have to think if he hadn't had that problem, where would he be? And then you couple that with, hey, you get a caution or two to bunch everybody back up. Um, yeah, I think you're 100% right. And I'm sure those guys are thinking it too in the back of their mind. Um, man, only if we would have gotten some cautions. But you know what? That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And like I said, these top 10, finishes, sometimes those are just part of the journey of getting to a points championship. You reel those off, limit the 30th place finishes, the 20th place finishes. You get a couple of wins in there. That's, at the end of the day, that's how you win a championship.
As the lead is now over 2.7 seconds for Baker over Radford. 9 laps to go, coming to 8 laps to go. We appreciate you joining us tonight on Extreme eSpeed TV, the official home of the LEC NextGen series. You can catch every race during the 2022 season right here on Extreme eSpeed TV. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, you'll get notifications every time a Light Electric Company NextGen series race is about to begin, which we will be back on air next Sunday, John, from Richmond Raceway. Then we go to Charlotte Roval, and then we're off for a couple weeks in April for our first break of the season. But thus far, we've seen a lot of great racing, a lot of different winners, and as we've got 7 laps to go, Steve Baker looks to claim his first victory of the 2022 season.
Yeah, like I said, just an amazing drive today. He hasn't put a tire wrong and has controlled the race pretty much the whole way here. And the winning move for him, if he's able to hold on here and put it in victory lane, I think is going to be that early pit stop. He dictated to everybody when to come in and whatnot. You saw a lot of guys follow suit within a lap or two. The first set of pit stops, you saw a couple of guys pit before him. So he wasn't going to let that happen. So I do think his winning move didn't happen on the track. I think it was that call to pit early. know, it's funny. This time of the race, you hear, Mike Joy and the rest of those guys, when they're calling races, you hear the drivers talk about now's the time when you can hear things going wrong with the cars. At least I have motor issues and stuff like that, but you still are now, or to the point now, you're probably being overly cautious. And what Baker has to not do is get out of his rhythm. If he starts trying to slow down and be too conservative, I've seen guys get into trouble, maybe turning in or lifting early and whatnot, and it changes their rhythm. And next thing you know, they have an issue, and second is right back in this. So this thing isn't over yet.
It is not, as Steve Baker has over a 3-second lead. Got some lap cars coming up. Not in the clear as we've got 4 laps to go around Atlanta Motor Speedway. Plenty of things we've seen throughout this season so far. I think back to even last week with you and Andy on the call. That finish was not expected and changed multiple times the last few laps as the cautions came out. Big moves were made. A lot of action to finish that Phoenix race.
Yeah, that was something else. And, you know, up, but, those are the things he can control. Everything he can control, he has done and done right. So, while we heap a little bit of praise on the 55 for a flawless run here, the 94 with Trevor Radford has pretty much done the same thing. The only difference is that 55 of Baker has been just a little bit quicker as we get the white flag.
So Steve Baker makes his final lap around Atlanta Motor Speedway in that 55 machine. Makes his way around. He looks to claim his first victory of the 2022 season as he had a fast car throughout the race. He'll come out of 3 and 4. The Atlanta crowd is on its feet for the 55 machine of Steve Baker as he will claim victory in the Indian Neck Motors 150 at Atlanta Motor Speedway, marking our 5th winner in 5 races to kick off this season, John.
Yeah, caution. No matter where you're at in this field, how good these guys are, and my hat's off to them. Great job by everybody.
So they make their way around. Steve Baker will stop on the front stretch here for us as he has claimed victory. Second will be Troy Radford. Third will be Travis Smith. And we will get the finishing order up as 55 machine of Baker celebrates on the front stretch here in front of a packed Atlanta Motor Speedway. Another great crowd for tonight's Light Electric Company NextGen Series event. And plenty of space to burn it down here on the front stretch of Atlanta.
Hey, I know you're from the area. Have you ever gone, because he's right here on the front stretch where the Legends and Bandolero track is, have you ever gone out there and watched those guys run?
I have not. They do it quite often, and there's been plenty of actual NASCAR guys. I know the Reagans still do a lot with it, but they race I think almost every weekend throughout the summer, and then I think on Fridays they actually have some street drag racing that goes down pit road. So a lot of action. It's actually it's a track that's used quite a bit. I actually know they use the front parking lot in the new Spider-Man movie. So it was completely blue screened last summer while they were filming that. So Atlanta Motor Speedway, while busy tonight on and off the track, it's busy throughout the year with plenty of racing action. As we've got our finishing lineup up as we wait for the drivers to get out and get ready to join us to talk about tonight's race. John, do you want to go through our finishing lineup?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I didn't have it up here, but I can get it. Here we go. We have Steve Baker brings home the victory tonight with Troy Radford finishing second. Travis Smith brings it home third. Brian Littleton comes home fourth. Followed by Christopher Spencer in fifth place. Nathan Bishop, Brian Snare, Roy Hyde are your next three at sixth, seventh, and eighth. Dylan Blankenship and Jimmy Hendrick will round out the top 10. Chris Bedford is going to be Hunter Tate. And bringing her home in 31st is going to be Robert Hetrick, followed by Brandon Medford and Damon Patton. 34th is Mike Massengill, followed by Joshua Caudill. 36th will be Kenneth Osmond. Mitchell Snare is in 37th, and Travis Arthur rounding out the field, bringing it home in 38th position tonight.
And with that, John, we are now in Century Victory Lane for the LEC NextGen Series. As we look and see, we've got some drivers joining us. First, let's pull up the third place finisher, the number 9 machine of Travis Smith. Travis, thanks for joining us tonight. What was really the difference? Obviously, we saw 100 green flag laps. What was the difference between being able to get up to third and not being able to quite make it all the way up front?
It was tires. You had to manage your tires and have a long run car there. I think I fell back to 16th on the start trying to save tires, which killed me there on that first initial run. So I had to drive all the way back to 16th up there. But really, really, really good long run car if you kept the tires on it. It's just a chess match though, because you got guys going so fast, you don't want to let them get going, and you got to keep telling yourself no, 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 and then go, go, go. But I'll take it though. That was pretty fun. Caution free at Atlanta. That's wild. I really like these tire races.
When we saw some green flag pit stops, we saw some guys stay out, some guys pit early in those green flag runs. What was really your strategy in tonight, especially with 2 green flag pit stop events throughout the race?
Well, I kind of went in the second time a little sooner than I want because the 94. A different zip code. The 94 was really good. He's always good at saving his stuff and being there at the end. So about where the qualifying position I messed up and put myself in to get back to third is about where I would have ended up at the end of the day anyway. So it worked out after.
Well, congratulations on a top 3 finish tonight, Travis. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we go on to our top 2 finishers tonight?
Yeah, first and foremost, the wife and kids. Long weekends with the travel ball stuff, and they let me get on here on Sunday nights and race. The Dirty Air group, all the hard work they're putting in this year. Welcome Steve Baker, and I think his second race with us here, he's put it in victory lane. So that's pretty awesome to see him get a win finally after being up front most of the year, having some bad luck. And let's see, the LEC group, Thomas Light, we miss you, buddy. Thank you for sponsoring us, putting this on for us every Sunday nights. And you guys up there doing a great job in the booth. Appreciate y'all.
Well, thank you for joining us, Travis. We'll see you next weekend at Richmond. John, I think you've got our winner, Steve Baker, with you.
Yeah, Steve, this is John. You got a copy? Yeah, I got you guys.
Well, man, I tell you, this, first of all, the whole field going caution free, just amazing job by all you guys out there. Just totally amazing. Shows the quality of guys that you had to beat tonight. You didn't put a tire wrong. I think this is one of the best drives that we've seen so far, with all the things going on with the different tires, falling off and all that kind of stuff. The big question I have is I kind of felt like the winning race of the move was for you to get that early pit stop, on that second pit stop. What was your thinking, and what made you decide to pit early this time around as opposed to last time where you went a couple laps longer than most?
Yeah, just once we got out front and had the clean air, just wanted to make sure we didn't really get undercut by anybody. So went, as soon as I felt comfortable going, and luckily before anybody else sort of pulled off, um, and just try to create a reaction from everybody else there. Um, Later in the race, since it had been going clean, but like you said, man, yeah, 100 laps at Atlanta. I felt like I needed that to have a good run, have a lot of green flag runs and full fuel runs. So it was nice to have that. Nice to have really, really fun, clean racing there up front. So felt good to finally put it in victory lane.
The other question I have is, and that amazed me, and that was part of the reason you guys went caution free, is when you got back out on the track, you guys were about 2 seconds faster than the guys that didn't pit. Can you tell me a little bit about that closing rate and how you had to make decisions to race once you got back on the track, and how everybody kind of had to work together there?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I felt like everybody was, being really respectful out there tonight with the different strategies and different, just different, tire strategies on the car, and those closing rates. Everybody kind of was heads up with awareness, and I didn't see, too much sort of hairy moments out front, racing there. So appreciate that to all the guys running. So.
Well, congratulations on, like I said, a pretty much a flawless race there. I didn't see you put a tire wrong, but anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to first and foremost just the Dirty Air crew for letting me join on, and practice and test with those guys, and sort of be part of that team for this season. So it's been really really beneficial and fun to race with them. Shout out to Damon and Cody and you guys for the broadcast and just putting this thing on. Jax for the points, and everybody who makes this happen, and who comes out. I mean, we've got like, I don't know, 40 plus cars every week. So it's a great league to run in, a lot of fun, and hopefully this is a bit of a turning point for us. We've had a bit of a rough start to the season, so.
Well, good luck with the rest of your season, and we hopefully will talk to you next week. That is Stephen Baker, tonight's winner.
Thank you for Stephen Baker joining us from Century Victory Lane, our latest winner during the 2022 season. Next joining us, we've got Troy Radford. Troy, you finished second tonight. Could you kind of walk us through your night and tell us about how it went from your driver's seat?
It was about as uneventful as you get at Atlanta. Especially with the tire strategy, you're kind of all on the edge because you got people that are 3 seconds faster or slower than you, depending on where you're at on the track. So, was definitely interesting, but came home with a clean car. Had to abuse the tires just a little bit. Had a almost wreck in front of me and lost a little bit of time, and kind of abused the tires just a bit trying to catch up to Steve. So, decent night all overall. Can't complain. And big congrats to Steve there.
One thing we noticed, Troy, during that second green flag run, you made up some major ground on Steve, and then you guys came up to lap traffic. He was able to get through it a little bit cleaner than you. Could you kind of walk us through what you were thinking, what you were trying to do, or what maybe you weren't able to do as quickly as you wanted?
So right before that second run, when we were making our first pit stop, we had an almost wreck that happened. I lost about a second and a half because just so I didn't get involved in it. And then that entire second run, it was like I was trying to save tire, but trying to reel him in at the same time. So kind of right when I, got close to him where you were talking about there, started catching some lap traffic badly where they were sliding up into the top lane where I wanted to be. And, it was really hard to run the bottom. So, lost a little bit of time there. And then he had done a better job of saving his tires because he was just kind of letting me reel in, knowing that I was going to burn him up a little bit. And then it's just kind of expanded on itself where, the third run kind of had the same thing, had to make up a little bit of time and, trying to eat up the tires. But you're just kind of putting that hole that there's really nothing to do. You just, hope for a little bit of luck.
So next week we head to Richmond Raceway, Troy, our first short track of the season. We've seen a lot of clean racing, a lot of green flag runs thus far this year. Do you think that changes next week as we go to the 3-4 mile in Richmond, Virginia?
It just kind of depends on which Richmond shows up. There's times where Richmond's loose as all get out coming off the corners, and then there's times where it's tight. And honestly, the times where it's loose off the corner, it tends to have better racing because everybody's just trying not to wreck. So it usually ends up being, better overall racing. When it's tight, people overdrive and end up wrecking each other. So I'm hoping we get that loose Richmond and get some good long green flag runs. It tends to be a good track for me, so I just hope to come away with a good top 10 there.
Well, congratulations on a second place finish, Troy. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to before we leave Atlanta for the night?
First of all the sponsors of the league with Light Electric, Century, all of those guys. It's just so hard to keep these leagues running, and having the backing of those guys and the support that they've been around for years. That it's just huge for this league. But of course, personally, a National Kidney Foundation, Evidence-Based Mommy, as well as the Lucky Finn Project, and all the guys over at Falcon Motorsports.
Awesome, Troy. Congratulations on a second place finish. We'll see you in Richmond next weekend.
Yep, thank you.
So, John, we come to close. We came to Atlanta Motor Speedway, had a great crowd turnout for tonight's event. Saw 100 green flag laps. Any takeaways you have before we shut it down for the night?
Yeah, just once again, I know I sound like a broken record here, but all the drivers that race in this series to go wire to wire with no cautions on a track that can just be a pain in the butt. I mean, it's a hard track to kind of get a hold of and manage, especially for that long. That means they had to keep their concentration up at a high level for all 100 laps with no breaks or anything like that. And I'm just very impressed, and it was a great race to watch. And you know what? I can't wait for Richmond here. We go back to a short track. We've seen some really exciting finishes, at the short track so far, and I know that maybe Phoenix may not be considered a short track. It's being a mile and being odd shape, but hopefully we get some racing like what we saw out there on one of the smaller tracks. I guess I'll say it that way.
Sounds good, John. I'm looking forward to joining you next Sunday in Richmond as well. We'll have night conditions, so our first night race of the 2022 season as well. As always, we appreciate you tuning in to Extreme eSpeed TV. Wednesday night, we've got the Cool Ray Pro Late Model Dirt Series. They're at Bristol Motor Speedway for the Smoky Mountain 50. Be sure to tune in that if you want some dirt track racing. Otherwise, we will see you next week from Richmond Raceway. Thank you as always. I'm Travis Piercefield. Thank you, John, for joining me as always, and we will see you next weekend.
This copyrighted broadcast of Extreme eSpeed TV Network is intended solely for the entertainment of our audience. Any retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without express written consent of the Extreme eSpeed TV Network is strictly prohibited. We hope you've enjoyed this broadcast.